I have always loved pushing Total War to its limits. From the old days of holding a bridge with a line of Spartans against thousands of Persian infantry, to the Total War's laboratory mode, which gave you the opportunity to take Total War to its absolute limits, fighting tens of thousands of troops. Well, Creative Assembly have been kind enough to sponsor this video for me to take things even further beyond with the brand new and free Mirrors of Madness game modes. Total War, working alongside Intel, have created the ultimate playground for someone like me. With the Mirrors of Madness DLC, we have two brand new game modes, the Infinite Portal, which allow you to use countless combinations of customizable battle settings to manipulate the laws of reality. Basically, you can change a ton of features to create some pretty wacky scenarios, including sticking the unit size to 10 times Ultra, resulting in battles numbering tens of thousands of troops, and in some cases, hundreds of thousands of troops. That's a little spoiler for later on in the video, so stick around if you want to see me send my PC to the moon. The other game mode in the Mirrors of Madness DLC is the Trials of Fate, which offers you the opportunity to fight well-known Total War Warhammer battles reimagined within the twisted realms of Tzeentch to win unique campaign items for the Chaos Undivided Demon Prince. So let's start there with the Trials of Fate. As of right now, there are currently 5 well-known battles, such as Blackfire Pass, the Fallen Gates, and Hel Fen. In these battles, you'll take command of a Tzeentch-based army and be pitted against endless waves of enemies ranging from the Orcs to the Vampires to the Lizardmen and finally Chaos. In these battles, there are no victories. You'll get overwhelmed and defeated eventually. It is simply just a matter of time. However, the longer you stay alive and the more enemies you manage to defeat, the happier Tzeentch is and rewards you with points. As you earn more of these points, the bar in the top of your screen will fill up, passing to the next reward, which goes from bronze to silver, gold, and then finally platinum. So the longer you survive and the more enemies you kill, the better your rewards are. Tzeentch, however, does not send you into battle unarmed though. You have a set of 3 new chaos abilities that absolutely demolish everything on screen. I mean, just look at this. You also have a spell that disorientates everything around it, and another vortex spell that just gets shot off into the distance and wreaks havoc along its path. These spells can also be upgraded with the in-game book resource that again you accumulate as the battle progresses, enhancing the abilities and making them even more devastating. Finally, whilst you hold the capture point, you basically have infinite winds of magic, which means keeping the flag secured is pretty much your #1 priority, because whilst you have it, the only thing you really have to contend with is your own cooldowns. The ability to spam stuff like Infernal Gateway is absolutely brutal. And alongside that, you also get access to a Fire Mage, so having a Burning Head and Infernal Gateway just being shot off, causing absolute mayhem, is a really quick way to accumulate a ton of points. The 2 I tried was definitely a stark difference, because the battle against the Lizardmen was definitely an uphill engagement. Against the Orcs, it was a little bit easier to gain points, as they were throwing through a lot cheaper units towards my lines, and it wasn't really until a massive Black Orcs came that they started to really penetrate the armor of my Tzeentch warriors. Overall though, I think this is a really neat game mode, and I love the way that it actually ties back into the grand campaign with the customizability. Unlocking extra body parts for the Demon Prince is a very unique way of kind of going full circle and bringing this back to stuff like Immortal Empires. Okay, now let's strap some rockets to my computer and prepare to make liftoff into the Infinite Portal game mode. I'm going to be attempting to fit the most amount of units on screen at one time before the game implodes on itself like a black hole. This game mode allows you to push the limits of Total War Warhammer 3, pitting any faction against one another and adjusting the damage multipliers, the reload rate, the ability to add infinite winds of magic, unit scaling, and even blood. The thing I was most excited for, however, was definitely the unit size modifier. This meant that units that had 180 models in them would be bumped all the way up to 1800. Couple that with the large army option, which allowed you to have 40 units per army, and well, you can see where I'm going with this. I started off with, just a casual 51,000 soldiers on the battlefield, having both Cathay and Skaven fight it out for my pleasure. This was with the unit size turned all the way up to ×10. I also scaled up the unit entity as well because, I wanted to see what Mao Ying looked like. but I was also blown away by the true scale of the units like the Terracotta Sentinel. There was just something so right about seeing these things tower over my 23,000 troops in an absolutely gigantic fashion. I honestly wish there was an option to just leave lords at the same size but increase the scale for monstrous units. The battle itself actually ran pretty well, all things considered, and just watching 160 fire rocket batteries unleash hellfire on an army of 33,000 Skaven was definitely satisfying. On top of that, having 1,200 models of Jade Warriors per unit clash against thousands of Skavens with a 2,000 enlarged Mao Ying towering over them, well, I mean, honestly, what more could you ask for? I'll tell you what more you could ask for. 90,000 soldiers on the battlefield was my next test. I decided to go up pretty much double in unit size, with my choice being the Orcs and the Skaven this time. Honestly, the Green Tide had never looked this good before. I mean, 42,000 Orcs charging towards 51,000 Skaven is the stuff I used to dream about as a kid. The Rogue Idols also looked incredible on 200% entity scaling, towering over the Rats and Orcs as they battled below. Performance-wise, this was where I really started to notice the game struggling on the normal speed. I was still getting a similar FPS as the last battle. Just at this point, I think the AI calculations were getting a little bit too much for the game to handle. Surprisingly though, sticking the game on slow motion completely removed any lag and the game ran perfectly. So yeah, 90,000 orcs and the Skaven fighting to the death looks pretty neat. So we did 50k, we did 90k. Now let's turn things up a notch, really get the rocket fuel pumping in my PC and try 130,000 troops on screen at one time. To do this, I had large armies ticked and picked 4 factions and just went with whatever the AI picked. The game did not like this one bit, coming to a near stop on normal speed. However, it still loaded and it still showed the units without the game crashing on slow-mo. And on slow-mo, the game actually ran at a respectable level. I also started to notice massive clumps of troops on the side of the armies where the units were stacking up on one another. And I honestly think that this was one of the main contributing factors towards the lag/stuttering. And if we just got some bigger maps to go ahead and mess around on the laboratory, I honestly think that these battles would run a lot better. So after my test, 130,000 troops worked, and even though it was definitely an uphill battle, for the most part it loaded and it ran okay, all things considered. So now let's actually just kill my PC. 170,000 troops on the battlefield at one time. To make this happen, I had to employ the ultimate tactic of the NASA preset army build, which was just an army of Skaven slaves. So with my PC lubed up and ready to go, I hit the start battle button, and to my surprise, the game actually didn't crash. The battlefield was truly glorious, and honestly, on slow-mo, it was actually acting very much the same to the 130k troop battle. That was until the AI really started to implement calculations, and then the battle itself really slowed down. But hey, it worked, and considering what's on screen, I will take it. At this point, however, my 2070 Super Blesser was starting to enter the stratosphere, so I decided to call it a day and end the test there. However, that night I slept in my bed and I wanted to go where no man had gone before. So after waking up and having my morning gallon of tea and saluting the Queen as I do, I attempted the ultimate challenge: 210,000 troops on the battlefield at one time, and it immediately crashed. I tried again and it once again crashed. I thought to myself, this is where my journey ends. However, I wanted one more attempt, and to my astonishment, it actually worked. 210,000 soldiers on the Total War battlefield at one time, until about 10 seconds later when the game crashed. So it seems like anything over 200k, the game has a really hard time actually understanding exactly what's going on. However, it loaded and it worked, so I'm going to take that as a win. I am also just realizing now as I'm editing this footage, but I recorded/played all of this on the ultra maxed out settings of Total War Warhammer 3. So even though I'm an idiot, it does also speak to the game running that well with the units on the highest possible graphics. So 200,000 units seems to be the breaking point for the new Infinite Portal game modes, with 70,000 troops on slow-mo being completely possible to actually have a functioning battle. Massive shout out to Creative Assembly for sponsoring this video and making my PC hotter than the new Choas Dwarf forges.